What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in again to another True Strength Life podcast episode. I am interviewing Bumps INF, the Christian rapper. Is it okay to call you the Christian rapper or the
Oh yeah,
rapper
of course.
who's a Christian?
I have.
I don't know. I don't know where you. I know
I
that's
got
a
no
age.
problems with it, man.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. The Christian
I
rapper.
embrace it.
So
Yeah.
All right, so Bumps, you just came out with an album, Chaos is Beautiful. I think you're pretty much an OG at this point, right? You've been in the game long enough that you're okay with saying that about yourself.
Yeah, I think I would qualify.
Okay,
It's been
okay.
it's been over a decade plus. So I'd
I
I,
say in my mind, I think if you hit a decade or more, then you qualify. That's just me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but so you're well. Actually, before we get into any music stuff,
Mhm.
I wanna give you a chance. Take as long as you want. Tell a little bit of your testimony, who you are.
Oh, the condensed version.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. So I got saved in February of 2005. Um, just had a lot of different stuff going on. It's like there was actually some really dope components in my testimony. But the gist of it was I had a somebody my sister-in-law at the time who we were hanging out with a lot had like left my house and then passed away suddenly. And then within
Mm,
a few weeks of that, I had one of my homies from the label that I was on at the time. I was a secular label, but it was like just bunch of friends from high school. But we were deep, and we actually had buzz going from the city. And then when he got killed, um, while all of that is happening, I'm simultaneously just asking questions, having like just strange. I'm gonna say strange conversations, but I remember at the time, me and my best friend, we would go into like my bathroom and smoke weed, but we'd have these deep, for some
yeah.
reason, theological questions, right? And then I ran into an old buddy of mine, just hooping that I hoop with regularly, and I guess just had gotten saved, and he was just talking to me about he was like the dude I'd go to when I had questions for stuff like that,
Yeah.
and and I guess I always thought this is crazy, but um throughout all of that stuff, I'm struggling with like, the deaths of, my sister-in-law and my close homie. Um,
Grieving.
I
Yeah.
I had my stereo got stolen out of the apartment complex that I lived in, and happened to have I think with the car that I had bought, but basically the only thing I had was we put the tape player in there because it happened to be in the trunk, and CDs were a thing which are obsolete now, but it was something, maybe it was a CD player or something. It was something weird where that same night after we installed it, I found either the tape or the CD on the ground. I didn't know what it was. It had to have been a tape, and it was I put it in there, and it was the truth's moment of truth. So literally, as
Okay.
all this stuff is happening, I'm having these spiritual conversations. I'm asking questions, yada yada yada. That's the only thing I had to listen to and from work every day, and I was like blown away. I was so impressed with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this is dope. But he's also like, God's doing something entirely different. I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? He's like ministering to me. And yeah, um, one night in February, I just woke up out of a dead sleep, and I did not grow up in church. I'm not churched at all. My family weren't religious. I woke up out of a dead sleep, man, and dropped to my knees and just started crying out to the Lord. And
Wow.
everything was different. It's when I woke up. I mean, it would, you know, I wish I could say I stayed that. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, my Christian walk has not been rosy since then, but since that night, it seemed like my desires literally was like there was a night and day shift, or I had new desires. Um, it just crazy.
Wow. That's See, that's so cool to hear because you have a lot. It seems like you have testimonies where you hear a lot of testimonies where I grew up Christian in a Christian household, and uh, yes, it was the thing that my parents raised me as, and all that. But it is real for me. But there never really was like this, light bulb, you know, life changing, shifting moment. It was just like, yeah, I know I'm saved, and I follow Christ, which, to be honest, is more so my personal testimony, something like that. Um, but then like a testimony like yours is amazing because it's an instant like moment. It's all God. There's no other way to explain it except God. Um, and like you said, like all your desires changed. So talk about that for a second because I'm a little curious about that. When you say instantly things changed, play that out a little bit. Like, were you still
So,
doing? Go ahead.
um, what's crazy is, man, my memory is so trash too. So I wish I had a good memory. I could tell this a little bit more concise and in the proper timeline. But during that time, probably sometime prior to that night or that day, or night rather, that friend who was kind of like telling me about, that was talking to me and answering some of my questions, the guy I was telling you that I hoop with all the time.
Yep.
He was sharing the gospel with me, yada yada. He had got me a Bible.
Okay.
It was called the Book. I don't. It was like some sort of like, it was a different. It was almost close to like the NLT.
I was
But
about to ask what translation.
yeah, it was real close to the NLT. There was some variations of it, but so I had that, and I'm saying at the house. But I remember, and this is even more crazier, that the next morning, getting up and just kind of I can't say, I don't want to over spiritualize it, but I started reading the Bible like every day, and like that was from that moment on. I had these new desires and wanted, like, and there was like transformation in my day to day behavior. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't seeing things through the same filter. In fact, I remember my wife at the time was working at a department store close to our crib, and something happened to where she had got a flat tire. This might have been the next day, actually. Um, I can't even. I wish I remember it more clearly, but I still to this day can't even make sense of what happened. Like, as I'm like changing her tire, he might even have been a homeless dude or some random guy was walking past me as I'm fixing the tire or doing something into the car, and he quotes the same scripture that like I was just reading that morning. And mind you, at the time, like,
Wow.
I've not really read scripture or like that. Like, it just happened to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know
That's
what
God, bro.
significance that play. It was just like, how? Like, they don't even, but at the time it was just, it was blown. I was blown away. Even the whole, it might sound silly, but like, not in hindsight, obviously, the whole finding the truths tape. Um,
Mm.
First of all, you know what I'm saying? Like, back then, even Christian hip hop was like non-existent at that time. So it's just like the odds of that happening. You know what I'm saying? The odds of my stereo getting stolen. I only had this tape player to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just so much orchestrated. It was like divinely orchestrated. I don't have any other way to make sense of any of it other than it has to be God.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, it has to be God. Period. um, wow, wow. So, all right. So you kind of talked about how you were part of this secular rap group. So at this point, when you're saved, you already obviously were rapping. Um, how did you how did you originally at this point in life? Well, actually, in 2005 when you got saved, how old were you? Just to get an idea.
Oh man, I was young. I had to been 19 or 20.
So how long had you been rapping at that point?
Um, I bro, I don't even know, like, to say seriously. I mean, I kind of started rapping and like because of a friend started encouraging me to pursue it. But like more seriously in high school, like I don't know. I always like wrote raps in throughout middle school, but I was kind of like, at the point where I was too afraid or whatever. But
Yeah.
So at that point, not very long, and after I got saved, like I stopped rapping. I quit. Like I'm like,
Mm.
I just it's not what I wanted to do anymore. The music that I was making, obviously, there was a lot of conviction there. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't honoring to God. It was just it was it was hella just evil. A lot of shock
Yeah.
value, just a lot of just saying stuff for the sake of saying it, and it wasn't like out of like, oh, God told me to stop or whatever. That's just what I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it alone type of thing. You know what I mean? And I
It
don't.
was it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really remember exactly how long it was until I started rapping. I know I was not. I was in a different house. I definitely lived in a different house, where it's like I started feeling convicted to like, like, you know, his gifts are irrevocable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he blessed me with this ability, so I started feeling this conviction to say like, how can I not honor you with every part of my
Mm.
life, including this,
Okay.
this ability of rap, or I guess, you know what I'm saying? So that's when I,
Yeah.
decided to just give it a shot.
Mm. Um. So from okay, so there you go. So from when you decided to give it a shot and kind of start with, I guess you could call it your Christian rap journey. From that point to then Bizzle and God Over Money and all that happening, how did that kind of come together?
Um, so I mean that's probably another 5 years past. I dropped uh, a handful of projects, maybe three,
Yeah.
4 mixtapes. Um, and but it's for the way the Bizzle thing kind of popped off was, I drive a lot for work, and I'm constantly in and out of like accounts or whatever. And I had got to wherever I was supposed to be a few minutes early. It was, I think I had like 20 minutes to kill or whatever. And I had happened to, I remember because there was this cat that there was a lot of like controversy, around, um, after the Jay-Z diss. And I remember,
Yeah.
I was like remodeling my bathroom, you know what I'm saying? And I decided to check him out. Like, I just passed the time, and I remember listening to it and coming to the conclusion, like, yo, I'm like, man, there's no way this guy doesn't love God. Like, he loves the Lord. Like, and I felt like he was kind of being you know, fairly treated, essentially, a little bit, from the people in the space at that time. Anyway, that consequently had led me to kind of start like, follow him and see what he's up to, like on his, I think it was Twitter at the time. And
Mm.
I just noticed he was doing, he had dropped the Messenger One. That's actually the project I had listened to, but he was doing a contest for a
Yep.
record, like, which was ultimately the Christ Reigns joint. And like I said, would have never did anything like stuff like that. I'm not. That's just is not, for some reason or another. God saw fit to like give me some inspiration. And as I'm sitting in the car waiting to go into the spot for work, I had 15, 20 minutes to kill. I wrote a verse literally in that amount of time, recorded it when I got home from work that night. And I just remember he emailed me back like hella quick, like highly, like, just praising it. Like, yo, I remember saying it like, best one, be on standby. Cause there was like a week left of the contest. So I didn't know if you know what I'm saying? And then, um, I think, so ultimately I, I got on the record, and, that just kind of sparked, us just building. And yeah, just from there, you know what I'm saying, kind of created a friendship, and then he asked me to join the squad, and the rest is history.
That's dope. You're the
Yeah.
first artist he signed, right?
Yes, sir. Hmm.
Wow. Wow. And God
Yeah,
Over
man.
Money, like I think in the eye from a fan standpoint, uh and I'm somebody who's been following this. I was around. I was listening to all that stuff. I back then I didn't even know if he was called Bizzle or Lavis. I didn't know. I didn't know what he went by. uh,
Wow. Yeah.
but from a fan standpoint, GOM is it. I mean, it seems like it's huge. At least in the Christian rap world, it's basically like Reach if people consider that Christian rap, and then GOM. So depending on if you don't think Reach is CHH, then GOM runs things. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
From a fan standpoint, that's how I see it at least.
Thank you.
So that's I like hearing foundational stories like that to see how it all kind of came together. So that's really cool. Uh, I'm also noticing a pretty obvious trend of you have very significant just there is no very significant points of there is no explanation but God in your journey. Like you had 20 minutes to kill for whatever reason you were early, and for whatever reason you were listening to Bizzle at the time that you were, and you weren't even like in a writing mood or whatever at that time, but all of a sudden it just hit you. You wrote it down, and now look where you are. You know what I mean?
Right, right. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Um, all right, so let's jump forward. Your first album was 2012. Now we're at 2021. Chaos is beautiful. Why that name?
Man, perfect description of my life, man, is just sheer chaos. Just demanding full-time job, 7 kids. This music ministry.
7 kids?
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir. Yes,
Wow.
sir.
I noticed you had made some comments on the records like about having a lot of kids, but I thought that they were always kind of jokes.
Oh no, 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 man. I got so 6 of my own, and then actually this past September, my sister passed away suddenly, and
Mm,
so I got guardianship or custody of her son. So 7 now,
wow.
which I'm very fortunate for, though, man. Very thankful to God. That's how it played out, man. I wouldn't want him nowhere else but with us. So
Wow. Man, God bless you.
yeah, yeah, thanks. So I guess I say that to say my life is just sheer chaos, almost all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, um, not a lot of people more busy than me, and just my, me trying to um, see the beauty in it. You know what I'm saying? And the right, the to have the proper perspective in the way I see what I'm calling chaos for the sake of, what I'm saying, the title of the album.
Mm.
Um, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, just I think that's how God would want me to look at it, because there's a lot of things to complain about, and everybody can complain about stuff, but it's almost like a just the making the decision to view it in from just being grateful. You know what I'm saying? There's always something to be grateful for.
Mm.
Um, so
That's probably why you wear a lot of grateful stuff in videos, huh?
yeah, maybe I don't know.
That just stuck out because I actually just had a grateful shirt shipped in today, and then I happened to be just watching your video and I saw you wearing one. Um,
That's funny.
yeah, yeah.
I love Ray, man. That's my guy.
So, uh, so you just talked a lot about seeing it from a good grateful perspective. You you have a few songs on here about I think perspective, seeing a similar or the same situation from 3 different angles, right? Am I saying that right?
Hmm.
The diner, the waitress, and the owner.
Hmm.
Um, talk about those a little bit, kind of like where they came from, and also, um, I guess maybe what you were trying to get across through them.
Yeah. So, man, there's a lot of that. That's really the running theme of the album. It's not even so much about my life. It's more about just the state of the world.
Hmm.
It's but just how I, I rapped almost more from other people's perspectives on this album than I did from my own. I got the
Wow.
record called Change, where first verse I'm rapping, from the perspective of a felon who gets out of jail, then a stripper. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
Despero record. They're just so all these interludes. The diner, the waitress, the owner. So the first joint obviously is just from the perspective of a homeless dude, and his brief interactions with, you know, his world, the world around him, the
Yeah.
the, the spot, the diner that he frequents, his interaction with the waitress, yada yada. You know what I'm saying, and how he sees the world, and then The second one being telling the story from the waitress's eyes, and then to finish it, told the story from the owner of the diner's perspective, and weaving all of them into one cohesive story. But I guess the gist of that and just the storytelling throughout the album is hopefully it would evoke empathy. I
Yeah.
feel like so much that's the world needs that right now.
Oh
But
yeah.
it changes so much stuff. You know what I'm saying? When you just approach any situation or person or interaction um, with that mindset or that being your starting point of being one of empathy, I feel like that changes everything. You know what I'm saying? Like it would
100%.
drastically minimize conflict almost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, I would say the goal there was to evoke empathy,
Wow.
get your headspace in thinking that way at least,
Yeah. And of course has nothing to do with all the, political distress we have going on nowadays, right?
Honest to God, at the time, maybe on a subconscious level it didn't, but I feel like it fits perfectly because whenever
Yeah.
I really don't, I don't get into political debates, but whenever I've been asked, and this has been for years now, this has been the answer I've given them, like when they, how do you solve the world's problems or how do you solve the divide, yada yada. My answer has always been empathy on both sides. It's because at this point it's like everybody just, might as well just go to war, get it over with. You know what I'm saying? Like this, the
Yeah.
only alternative is like both sides are going to have to, you know what I'm saying? Like listen to each other and try to, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's maybe there's deeper things going on behind the scenes and at play there that, my small mind is, I can't wrap my head around. So
But it's cool though, like so many people are thinking so much about, politics and stuff, and I'll keep it there for a second, but so many people are thinking that where you're not necessarily making the political connection, but you're making the connection just from viewing life that people need more empathy. So you putting that out there does help the political process, the way people view that too, because there so many people are wrapped up in all of this. And then if they hear you say like encouraging more empathy from them, hopefully it'll just help the whole discourse. It's kind of the point I think I'm making. But
sure.
yeah, that's cool. I I know that that's one thing. I'm not gonna say I'm great with it, but that is one thing I try to do with my wife is see things from her perspective. Which definitely when I do that well, it definitely helps the overall relationship. Um, because you're not just seeing it from what you want or how you want to see things done. You're trying to see like, okay, this is what they dealt with today. This is what they went through. How might they be seeing it right now? Um,
Yeah, especially like as believers, it's weird that like it's not a more common thing. You know what I mean? Like the whole, I guess, premise of our faith is dying to self. Considering
yeah,
others. You know what I'm saying? And but doing that ultimately, I can't see how it doesn't improve any relationship. You know what I'm saying? So, but the CHH space in general is you know it literally just a carbon copy of mainstream media and seems to I'm not gonna bite my tongue, like it literally just parrots the same views and beliefs and narrative. That's a broad I guess observation. I'm
yeah,
not trying to attack anybody or saying like draw my or the line in the sand on any side, because like that is like I've been super intentional on, I guess. First of all, this whole scene that they don't need another voice to weigh in on all the topics that are happening. You know what I'm saying? But and some people do, and that's their truth, and I respect it. But it's also like I know God loves people on both sides, and I wouldn't want to stifle, my uh, the my chances of maybe winning a brother or sister, you know, just based on I had to tell you how I feel about this is where I line up on this, or you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying like that it's not, you know, it's in, you know, there, it has its role and its importance, but it's just not my lane, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I I've struggled with that personally, somewhat, because I'm interested in so many different topics, but I know that maybe I'm not meant to speak on all of those topics publicly. You know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
you hearing you say that, where my mind goes, just on the landscape of everything is, I
yeah,
immediately think you're more conservative, because that's just that's where we are right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I feel like only one voice is being heard, at least in mainstream media, right?
yeah,
Which is whack. That's hella whack. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, there's so many double standards. Like, there's so much trash, and that's not to say that I hate on, liberal folks or left leaning. You know what I'm saying? I got mad brothers and sisters
yeah,
that on that side, but I got, you know what I'm saying, like every hot button issue, I feel like I have people that I love deeply on both sides. You know, me being from the inner city, bro, one of my closest homies now is bro, he's a police officer, black dude. What's funny is that he got into it being entirely left leaning and wanted to change the system, and now like seeing him take a 180 in his views, like, yo, it's weird because he's experiencing something different. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just what a weird time it is, man. Like, it's
No,
crazy.
you're 100% right. And I mean, you are right too. I'm very conservative with my political views. I don't hide that if I'm asked about it, and I've actually talked about it much on the podcast. Um, but even when I said that I'm interested in so many things, but I'm not sure if I should talk about them all publicly. It's really like everything. So, you know, I'm very much obviously into the Bible, into theology, and creation topics and stuff like that. But should I should I every episode of my podcast turn into a theological debate? Or
Mm.
you know what I mean, like stuff like that. I that's why I like to talk to different people, bring different people onto the podcast, because we're all believers. I bring on all believers, but we all have different. We're all coming from a different perspective, and a different angle. Um, and I like that. But um, man, I could have went into a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm
Do
sure
it,
you don't. I'm sure you don't want to talk about politics the rest of the time.
bro.
So,
I'm here for whatever you throw my way, man. It's all
but
good.
I will say though, with a similar story to your friend you just mentioned, um, one of my best friends and longest friends in my life, uh, I will say it's just interesting. I'm not saying this to try to prove any point and all that, but it's interesting. He was a hardcore Bernie guy, so very leftist guy. Um, in 2016 and before that, and
Mm-hmm.
then uh, and then after 2016, fairly quickly became very conservative, with his, just seeing how things were happening, digging more into stuff, and he completely shifted political views.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's not a believer, but he he has become a lot more interested in uh, in godly conversations, if I can put it that way. And he actually even came with me to my church for we were doing a creation series on Wednesday nights at my church for a couple weeks, and he actually came to that just because he wanted to listen to it, um,
Nice.
from a straight biblical perspective on things. And yeah, so I don't know, I don't know exactly how the Lord is going to play this out and what's going to happen, but just an interesting kind of similar type situation to what you said with your friend.
Yeah, man. It's you know one of my like kind of mentors in the faith. It's not necessarily something that he spoke out loud or taught me in that way, but like just seeing him model this for me, it taught me everything with how I guess I desired to treat people. Not saying I get it right, but just in light of like the fact that nobody holds an incorrect view intentionally. At least I don't think. You know what I'm saying? Most of us, we hold to a belief because we think it's true. You know what I'm saying? And just, I mean, I'm a knucklehead in and of itself. So like, I could probably think of 10 things last year that I thought was true that I changed. You know what I'm saying? I changed anyway. I guess where I'm going with that is like what kind of like my mentor had when he first met me. I was all over the place with my worldview, my theology, all this stuff, and he just, it was just the most patient, loving way of walking me through things. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like no one's ever changed their mind in an argument. It's not going to happen. You're just going to double, you know what I'm saying? So I say that to say that like all of those things, I guess I try to consider those things just in dealing with people who just, don't have the same belief as you, because like your buddy and my buddy, like 2 years, a year, 6 months, they could believe something totally different. But yeah, it's not my, I don't know. It just the arguing, the social media stuff just seems like, though I get it, you know what I'm saying? Because somebody, it's, says something that goes against your views or something that offends you, like it's like almost like a knee-jerk reaction. You want to like respond and lash back out, but just generally, it just seems so fruitless, and it just created more, not good fruit. That's all I know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think to your earlier point and what you just said, one of the great proofs for the Christian faith is the martyrdom of the disciples, and because the point is that if they, like you said, people believe in stuff that's wrong all the time, and they die for stuff that's wrong all the time. You see it in cults and stuff like that. But the difference is you don't die for something that you know is wrong. You see what I'm saying? So these guys that walked with Jesus, they knew the real story behind Jesus. So if they wouldn't, if they wouldn't have gone to their death knowing the message they had just preached, for the last couple of years leading up to their death about Jesus, if that was all a lie, they would have just been like, "Oh wait, no, I was joking, guys. It didn't happen. It wasn't real." But they were like, "No, I saw it. This. You can't tell me this isn't real because it is real. I saw it. It's true, and I can't go back on that."
I just had, that's so weird you said that. Like I had a very similar conversation with my wife right before leaving the house to do these interviews. But that's, I mean, it's kind of like a pillar of of the faith, essentially, was these external things, the eyewitnesses account, or I don't know why I can't say that, but you get where I'm going.
The eyewitness accounts, yeah.
Yeah, like you don't, yeah, just to your point though.
Yeah, that's my world though. I love apologetics.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's jump back on the album real quick because I don't want to leave that hanging. What would be well, actually, before we get to that last question about the album, talk to me about Despero. Did I say that right? Despero. Talk to me about where that came from and also why you chose for that to be the video. And also the video was intense. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so, oh man, that video was inspired loosely from somebody that I know, somebody that like I see, at like cookouts, we watch their kids, that one of those type of things where, but like kind of extended family, but bro's got a family, few kids or whatever. But the gist of it was he had attempted suicide, shot himself one
Mm.
night, lived, and miraculously, just the way the trajectory of the round or whatever just kind of went out to perfect place to where I mean he was out of the hospital in like a week, and
Wow.
I was with him maybe 2 weeks after it happened. I remember so the record was inspired by me and him. It was the first time I'd seen him. We had a conversation. I think we were camping, and we were around a fire, and it's hard to explain, but I just remember hearing him talk, and I just felt it, like, and you could see it in his eyes as we're like watching our kids play, like that. He didn't want to die. Like he was so grateful that he was, what I'm saying? He lived
Mm.
through that. It was just a lapse of judgment, or what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's not everyone's story. So, so he lived. A lot of people, what I'm saying, who make that decision don't. But that's generally where the idea what came from. Like it's not, a copy of his story. And even that's why I ended it the way I ended it, like kind of open ended, where it's like it leaves kind of some, I guess a little bit of mystery. Um, just because I wanted it to, maybe because that, like I said, that's not how everyone's story ends. Sometimes, people make that decision and they don't come back from it or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I couldn't, ask for a better person to do the video with Ryan Lamar. He's an absolute legend. Um, the actors that came in, it was just it was really a God thing, man. Like I kind of had a hunch that there was something special about the record, just because like it was like the only time I've ever like in my like days of rapping had ever like almost like choked up while I was recording it. I just think I
Mm.
was like evoking that those emotions, like it was just weird, almost like as that person, and it did come out, it good, but to the set of the shooting the video in Chicago and like seeing actors and stuff that like, I'm saying, hearing it for the first time and they're tearing up and it's just like, wow, you know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah.
I know there's, and I hope to God that like it's still, its potential is untapped because I still feel like for the that type of what the record is, the visuals behind it, I I I feel like so many more people need to hear it. You know what I'm saying? I do
Mm.
think it could help a lot of people. So, um, yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah. So, so I'm I want to ask this, but not come off like a jerk. um, you you rap like you deal with a lot of anxiety or uh, trauma or stress or I'm not sure if I have the right word, but um, how do you on an ongoing basis? How do you what is your process that you deal with that?
Like creatively, from a music perspective, or
Um,
I don't know if I'm understanding the question.
like
And you didn't
so
sound like a jerk, by the way.
yeah. So well, I didn't want to just say like yeah you got issues, but um,
I think I do. I mean, you would have got that, by listening to some, 3 songs, you would have been like, yeah, this guy's got some problems.
we'll leave that up to the other listeners. Uh, so like the song with Fern, it's called Trauma. And you guys are, open about like you deal with a lot of in your head stuff. Um, so I guess yes, creatively is one way to answer it, but also like just maybe how you deal with that. Like do you go to therapy? Do you is it more of like a more of basically just a you and God thing, and he's helped you out or maybe pointed you towards that therapy is something you need, or how do you play that out?
Yo, so I've been to therapy before. It's actually something I probably I'm not against it at all. I I mean it's probably something I should look into like ongoing. You know what I mean? Just because I feel like even just processing, whether it be childhood trauma or just any type of trauma, uh, I feel like it's been like a lifelong journey for me where I'm constantly like peeling back layers and like what, what I'm saying,
Mm,
finding out more about things and not always, handling things in the right way, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Um, but creatively it's very simple. Just like I've never been able to I guess like fake the funk as far as like what I'm writing. Like it'd be really hard for me to just be living like trash and then get up on a stage and be, doing an altar call. Like I'm
Mm,
not saying
okay.
I'm outside of that. I'd like to think like that'd be really hard for me. You know what I'm saying? Because like I wear my heart on my sleeve. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to, yeah. And you hear that in my music. In the last interview I just did, he asked me like, one way to, or how would you describe, in a short sentence, your music? And the only thing I could think of, just based on what I hear a lot, is just extremely transparent. So it's like, however I'm feeling is literally the only that's what you're going to get. It's on the record I worked on that day or whatever I'm writing at the time. Um, so
Okay.
and that transparency, that's also what comes with that too is almost like, you know, uh, people, you know, I guess sharing failures and traumas and stuff that like you're not really proud of with the world, your laundry being aired out, you know what I'm saying? And still trying to figure out the best way to, obviously the foundation should always be God, and that's been the only way or the only answer that I could, so far, the best way to kind of deal with some of those things.
Mm.
Um but not all there yet. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I certainly don't have it figured out or I fixed all the issues, or you know what I mean.
Hey,
But that's where I kind of
we
feel
never
like,
have it all figured out, so don't worry.
right. But short term, I guess I just try to rely on, my close, my circle or whatever, and people that, you know, kind of do life with or whatever,
Yeah.
to work through some of that stuff with.
I I see I see practical things and in scripture where, iron sharpens iron. Don't forsake the fellowship of believers. Uh I see all that as kind of God's built-in way of like, hey guys, this is going to help you with all of these type of situations. Because we're all going to be going through stuff, or we all have come from different past situations, and we're all going to go through stuff as life goes on. Um, so maybe because I know like kind of a buzzword, today is therapy, and I'm not downing therapy, um, but I think
It's a lot. It's a lot of bad therapy, though. I mean,
yeah,
so
and
I get what you're.
see that's the thing though. Like I know people who have gone to therapy and uh they're strong believers, so they know a lot about what the word says, and they go to therapy and they're like, yeah, like it was a lot of like great emotional advice, but it also was somewhat like anti-Bible, like anti-scriptural principles, and they were like, so I can't like that's not gonna work for me, and that's why whenever I'm talking with a believer that is thinking about doing therapy, I'm always like, you have to go to a Christian therapist. Because if you don't, they're gonna try to give you a worldly answer to a spiritual problem. Um,
Unfortunately, that's not even a sure bet these days, because I've been to Christian therapists or counselors that, you know what I'm saying, like, and I'm not even coming from a condescending or like
yeah,
above you, you know what I mean, like holier than someone else. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm just saying like you can just but like I don't know if it's your spirit discerns it, or just like you you get very worldly advice. But when I look at things like broad scope of things, like it shouldn't be that it's disappointing, you know what I'm saying? But it shouldn't come as that much of a surprise, given that like how much, I mean, for the sake of like, if I don't want to say the church, right? I'm not talking about like the ecclesia or, you know, God's people. I'm talking about like church culture, people, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's very worldly. It's very carnal. Most of it, in fact, like the most people who identify as Christians aren't, you know what I'm saying? Like you'll get that
I,
in the same way we're talking about a bad therapist. Like you're going to get that same advice from most people profess to be believers. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah.
think, what is it, like 8 out of 10 people? I don't know how old the statistic is, but like, you know, most people here, I'm sure it's dipped a little bit, but so most people who profess to be believers, we know aren't. You know what I'm saying? At least if you're doing your, you know, anonymously, you know, in your own thoughts, like lining the lifestyle or the fruit with what the word says. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And your overall worldview. It could be completely anti-biblical. Um, yeah, no, you're right. It's very interesting.
A lot of what's being, bro, even just, I mean, second, third wave feminism, like in its the ideology, there's so much trash from the world that has been made normal within the body. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
it's disheartening. You know, it really is. And that's what makes it almost work. I'm coming from someone. I mean, obviously you're familiar with my music, so you know how like open I am about struggle. So like I am the last person that's qualified to talk about anybody else's sin. Like I almost view myself sometimes as like an outsider looking into this church, like to church culture, and it's like
Hmm.
it's crazy because it's like, man, I would, I feel like most people in the world too would respect it if like people like the church would really just stand up for what they believe, like some clear cut truths, you know what I'm saying, and not be so cowardly. And you know what I'm saying, like, but what's weird is like I could make a sin about, or I could make a song or a project. I'm literally just making this up, but like about, you know, I could basically be glorifying sin, right? And I feel like the church would defend me before, you know what I'm saying, they would, or you know, it's
Call
like
you out.
the
Yeah.
little Nas X, or not even like call me out in a bad. It just, I don't know, man. Like the whole little Nas X thing that just happened. Like I seen far more people, believers, that was riding with him and turned around and like scolded the church for, you know, the little people who did speak on him. I was just like, all you could do is be like, yo, like what a time to be alive, man. Like, and maybe it's because I didn't grow up in church. I'm not very like church cultured. Like I'm so detached and far removed from that in a lot of ways that I'm like, I'm not proud of. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I desire to be more ingrained in that. You know what I'm saying? Like and be more Christ centered in my entire life. But you know, I don't know. It just maybe I don't feel like I'm articulating it very well, but it's just it's I don't know, it's crazy. But I feel like most of the people who would identify as you know, the church, the Western church or Christendom rather, just it's just a, you know, a byproduct of the world, and they reflect their political views, their ideologies. You know what I'm saying? Like, but what's sad is how much of that is infiltrated. I feel like the church, the real church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's it might be a Spurgeon quote. I think it might be him where he said Christianity would be great if it wasn't for the people. um
Man, I struggle with stuff like that too, because like I feel like it almost is like removes accountability for yourself. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Spurgeon, I'm not no one to challenge anything he said. Because there's what's that? There's like a Gandhi quote or something, like, you know, he said something silly, but I've seen it quoted all the time, like something about this Christ you guys speak of, but it was like it's his followers that I don't like so much, or something, like, you know what I mean? It's like um but even like I see a lot of people like with church hurt that will leave the church, or you know, and then
Mm,
turn around and like
yeah.
out of bitterness and hurt, the first thing they do, they don't hold themselves accountable for their own crap that they got themselves into. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, oh, I left, because of you hypocrites and yada. It's kind of ironic, like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, like, I don't think I could ever blame. I've dealt with the same things everyone else has dealt with, been hurt, yada, yada. But ultimately, like, that ain't what made me fall into sin. That was me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did that. Nobody told you not to read your Bible for 3 years or fellowship with your brothers or sisters, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what? And what's funny is, like, I heard Kanye West say this at one of his Sunday services, and it's like, how profound but yet simple, but like most the church doesn't seem to grasp it. But where he was talking about, like, what we're talking about now, but he's like, but that person's not Christ. Like, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that what this whole thing is about? Like, this is like the hospital for the sick. You said it earlier. We'll never have it all together. You know what I'm saying? It's this process of sanctification.
Yep.
But yet we eat our own so frequently. And
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, like, maybe that's not a reflection of the true church, and it's just, I don't know. It's interesting though.
And I know, saying this stuff, I'm 100% guilty of all that.
So am I.
But so what has happened? You kind of brought up, like, first, second, third wave feminism. Like, I know you were using that as an example, but like all this other stuff that's going on right now, that a lot of people see as like, oh, it's dividing the church, and we need to stop letting this divide us. Yes, I know I know there is some of that happening, but in a maybe weird way, I kind of see this. I see it in what could be a good thing, because in a lot of ways it's tearing apart. Like, it's basically keeping the real ones. It's showing you who are the real ones and who are the lukewarm ones, and who are just like the fake ones completely. In a lot of sense, it's almost like we were kind of doing this for a while, and now all of a sudden it's become a lot quicker. You notice things. You notice who are the real ones, who are the ones that really act on this Christian life, and who are the ones that aren't really about it. Has become a lot more visible. There's obviously nuance in there, but that's just one thing I've pulled out of just generally the whole cultural situation right now.
I mean, Jesus said, a tree by its fruits, right? So, and one of my favorite scriptures of all time is when he said, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it's like, people are eventually always going to, tell you the truth, or what's really going on inside, and I don't know if judgment would be the right word, or what most people would say, oh, you're judging me. But, like, you know, Jesus was the one saying stuff like that. Like, we could match it, hold, like, view the word being the lens that we're viewing the world through. You know what I'm saying? If we're doing that, you know, the this the this is our God is saying this. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, red letter type stuff. But, like,
Yeah.
like,
The
their lifestyle is like this. This is what it is. But if you say that, the church kills you for it. Like, Jesus ain't the one to say. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
oh, you're judgy. You're one of the super saved Christians. Yada yada. Yeah.
that right there, I think, is one of the worst worldly things that's creeped into the air quotes church. Is this "you can't judge me" attitude? Because Scripture is actually very clear that Christians towards other Christians, we should be judging each other. I mean, how can you judge them by their fruit if you're not judging them? If you're not discerning them? How can we look at situations, where Paul is calling out, or even the other disciples and apostles are calling out other church leaders because of the wrong they're doing? That's them judging them. Jesus judged people. So that's a really, really bad worldly idea that's crept into the church, and a lot of times you hear it more from church people they use it as a way to try to be nice and kind, and they just go out and say it to everybody, when it's like, wait a second, I get what you're trying to do, but it's not right though. It's not the context is not there. Like, yes, don't go around judging and telling everybody that they're wrong about everything they're doing wrong, um, especially to non-believers. But at the same time, we do need to have somewhat of a judgmental vision towards our other brothers and sisters, towards our brothers and sisters, even if it's just to hold them accountable. Um, how can you think about it? How can we talk about accountability partners and groups and stuff like that, or small groups, keeping each other accountable within church culture? How can we do that if we're not judging each other?
I mean, everybody makes judgments numerous times a day, don't we? Like, I feel like it's almost like a buzzword where like it takes on this, new meaning or life of its own. But I mean, you basically said it all. Um, I mean, so we gotta. The goal is to like interpret scripture with scripture, right? Like you're an apologetics guy. Like at least that's
Yeah.
always that's how the approach I would try to take. So I mean, so you have a lot of other scriptures that you have to make cohesive with, or the judge scripture. God lays out what love is, right? So it's like we can't forsake or forget about those things too, right? So I'm just saying to say like there's a way to stand up for what you believe in or articulate truth and not be a dick. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay,
Yeah.
we've all encountered the zealous dude who's just, I mean, I've seen whack jobs or maybe they really have mental illnesses. I don't know, or just very mean spirited religious
Hmm.
people, right? But
Yep.
like, there's something I feel like in our spirit you can identify with, like, okay, he's, what I'm saying, there's not, something's not right there too, what I'm saying, because he might be saying something that's true in one aspect but he's forgetting those other things, what I'm saying. I don't know, man. I don't even know where I was going with that. Just it just, for the
The
most part, the way that it's such a convenient thing to say, about the judging thing. It's silly because, yeah, I mean, essentially, I mean, the church is, for the most part, they it's like it's emasculated. It's cowardly. And I say that as somebody who, like, man, I would rather be one of these dudes like ingrained in church, and you know I don't know, man. It's just like I wish I'd be there as opposed to where I'm at now. You know what I'm saying? And
mm,
struggling and sin and fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, so removed from that culture. Like, I probably need more of that. But I look at it like, y'all the worst gang ever. Like, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. You know what I'm saying? First of all, they're gang banging as it is. It is kind of like gang banging with the denominations and stuff. But um,
yeah.
they want to emulate the world so much, and it's like, no, like that's not cool. Like, I'm in the world, you know what I'm saying, or I've spent years in the world. There's nothing here for you. It's nothing cool about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? This is what leads to destruction. So if I'm having an affair, or I'm wilding out, right? You know what I'm saying? Doing something godless. At least for my personality, it's like there's a proverb that says this too. I'm gonna jack it up, but like I need the truth. Like, I don't need the sugar coated, like, pat me on the back, God is love, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need, just tell me what it says, and God's, you know what I'm saying? Even if it bothers me a little bit, you know what I mean?
Mm,
That's was such a beautiful part of the Bible, is it's filled with, I think, and even what attributes to its the claim that it's supernatural is like, who writes a book about a bunch of f ups? You know what I'm saying? Like, people, it's this, their sin is front and center. You know what I'm saying? That's what's so crazy about it. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
no, I mean, again, this is just my apologetic lens, but what you just said, the claims of a supernatural writing being about a bunch of people who were jacked up, that's one of the proofs of scripture being supernatural. Is it's called embarrassing testimony.
mm,
Why would they include every single detail that make these supposed godly people uh, seem like horrible people?
right.
The why would, in a culture that was heavily biased towards men and looked at women as lower, why would, the number one most important Christian story have, where when it comes to the truth of Jesus and everything he did for us, uh when he said that he was going to die and then rise again, who were the first ones to see him and then come back and tell everybody? It was women. Well,
Right.
if you're a guy writing that back then, why would you say that? That's gonna make you look
Exactly.
bad. What
It's like
I mean,
counterproductive, right?
exactly. So, and again, it just the embarrassing testimony points to the fact that it makes it a lot more likely that it's truth that's coming from it.
Mm.
Same thing with David. Same thing with Paul. Paul was a Christian killer, then went to be, the number one Christian missionary that's ever lived. Um, all this kind of stuff. Uh, so, see, that's what I told you before. Like I like to get in these conversations, just let it go where it goes. But I also want to try to keep it to an hour because I don't want to have this go crazy. I know it's late and you got 7 kids, which is insane. Um, so you need to get back to that chaos. But before we do that, I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you. These are just kind of random, but answer them, quickly and to the point if you can.
All right.
Uh, what are the top 3 things you're listening to right now? Books, podcasts, music, anything. Just your top 3.
Oh, Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and that new goodness, I don't even know what it's called, that J Money record.
Yeah, I have that. I'm forgetting the name of it too, but I did just get that. That's good. He's
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
he's
yeah.
dope. Um,
He is.
who are your all time top 3 Christian rappers? However you want to view this, it's to be an all timer. Who are your top 3?
Oh man. That's tough. 3, but I would say for me personally, ah man. I want to say Truth, Flame, and Bizzle. But I really don't want to leave KB out there because I feel like
Mm,
I love everything about KB, man. That dude's like my hero. I love this dude, man. He's just doing like I just love what he's doing. The whole HGA, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But for like legacy long term, yeah, I would have to go. It's in their impact on me, like in my artistry, my spiritual growth. Definitely, I would say Truth, Flame, and Bizzle. Yep.
Okay. Now, just because I'm curious, this isn't another question, but do you know? You ever listen to T-Bone?
So I've heard of T Bone. I know he's like a veteran or like an OG. I feel like right when I kind of came into the space and became like immersed in like Christian music and I think it was like right after that, but I could be wrong. But I don't know much about his catalog.
Okay. I was just curious because he's always in my top list because he's kind of who I started on. I started on him and Cross Movement. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm 30 and I've been listening to almost exclusively just Christian hip hop for about 20 years. Um, so yeah, I started 99, 2000, somewhere in there. Um,
Yeah,
T-Bone has always
that
been
was a
my favorite.
great era, man.
Yeah. I still
Bro,
listen to like the mid 90s cross movements and T-Bone and all that. I still listen to them like to this day.
I need to. One of my favorite albums of all time was Shylin's The Atonement.
Yep.
That record was really influential on me. And I was talking about this briefly in the last interview I did earlier. We were just talking about the genre and where it's at, but like, and there's like a maybe a very selfish side of me that I miss that era. Like, we're like almost like it was like an escape from the world, but it also like was edifying, and you
Hmm.
know what I'm saying, built me up in my faith. Um, which hey, maybe there's still music out there that could do that, and I'm just not, I'm just too detached. But like that was such a great era, though, man. There was like accountability, like it was just. I
Yeah.
mean, shoot, I probably can't even. I wouldn't have been able to put out projects in that era. You know what I mean? But it was like I felt like there was more of a striving to be more like Jesus. You know what I'm saying? It was definitely more Christ centered. The whole genre was, and there was cats really trying to live live that life,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean,
there was
like,
fakes.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always gonna, always gonna be that. I will say though,
But
I
now they're
think,
mad open about it.
yeah, yeah. So I
Cat,
think,
but oh, my fault. My fault.
no, I was just gonna say, I think to your point of people who encourage you and still give a message and all strong. Um, I see GOM as that. I see KB as that. Uh, I see Kingdom Music. I don't know if you listen to Brian T. All those guys. I I I get a similar encouragement from all you guys the same way that I got from like Cross Movement and T-Bone and all that. Um,
Yeah.
so it is still happening. If that's an encouragement at all to you.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Yeah, and yeah, Brian Trejo, shoot, Hog Mob. I know there's cats out there, that still treat the artistry as like ministry and just want to
Yep.
glorify God. So I know they're out there. I just gotta search harder. But like
um,
I said, it was a selfish part of me that kind of like misses the era. It's nostalgic.
no, I understand. I get it. I grew in my faith in large part to listening to their heavy theological rap. So
Yeah, yeah.
I deeply appreciate them. Um, all right, so I got to know this. This is a fan question, but I think you might have fun answering it. And this will be the last one. Who wins a GOM battle just between all you guys?
Like in its current format, like pre-written 3 rounds, like we're talking like that type, or like old school off the top of the head.
Well, all right, so let's answer it both ways. Pre-written freestyle. Because I really don't know who's a good freestyle anymore. Because really nobody releases freestyle videos.
I feel like, man, if I was going to be competitive in any realm, it would be that one because that's the when I came up. But
Mm,
I mean, I don't get me wrong, our whole roster is crazy talented, but I feel like the obvious ones would be Dayton or Biz. But I really think Biz would surprise people. Um, but obviously Dayton because that's his wheelhouse. That's where he was, raised, and he was, what I'm saying, like in that era.
yeah,
Dude did 106 in Park Champion, Shade 4-5 freestyle. Like that's yeah, yeah. I'd probably give it to Dayton, but I think Biz would surprise people.
yeah. Bizzle drops those little gems all over the place, and they they always hurt more the second or third time you hear it.
He's I mean that's why he's one of the goats for me, like honestly. And I think he's incredibly underrated and underappreciated. Like,
Oh, 100%.
I,
Yeah,
I see his platform in comparison to like who I would say are his peers, and it's like to me it's like a travesty. It's almost like blasphemous. Like how, but I say to say that what you were just saying, the dude has like us rappers. He has no what we call filler. Like every word is not wasted. Like it means something. Even like the setup lines. You know what I'm saying? Like
yep,
usually complement the following punch, or what I'm saying, the punchline or whatever. And then his ability to make great music still. Like that's always a struggle for I'm sure most rappers, especially ones came up in the era that we did, like in the battle rap culture. You know, grew up on Eminem's, stuff like that. But there's always like this battle of like internally as a writer where it's like you can say all the cool stuff and clever punchlines in the world, but if the song sucks, you know what I mean? Who cares? And
yeah,
so it's hard to do both well. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like you don't forsake like lyricism, punchlines, but still make great music. It's really hard to try to. And Biz does that. I feel like he kills it, and so does Dayton. I think too. So
yeah. Well, all you guys do. Uh, all you.
thank you.
Yeah. GOM, the whole everybody. Menace movement, with, you know, Dayton with all those guys, they're making their own lane
Yeah.
of being like kind of hardcore, which I love all that lyricism. Like that's more of what I'm into. But yeah,
They got
that's
some crazy talented people over there too, man.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, this was a great time. So
Thank you for having me, bro.
of course, and thank you for setting it up. Tell your I'm going to tell him too, but tell your manager, you know, I really appreciate it. Even just, you know, answering back to me and keeping the conversation going. And so take a minute and you know, plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah, man. Well, the album is out now everywhere you can stream. The Chaos is beautiful. You can reach me at, you know, Bumps INF, you know, Instagram, Patreon. Those are where I'm most active. But pretty much any socials. Website is bumpsinf.net, bumpsinfinite.com. It'll all take you to the same place. But yeah, go stream. You know, rack the streams up. The Chaos is beautiful. Watch the videos on YouTube. It's you know, they're all on the God Over Money YouTube page. Yeah, do all that fun stuff. But
And
thank
you
you for
got
having me though, bro.
you got the dope merch that just came out too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I really like the way those turned out. We did a little the tap tech, or you know, the I guess scannable technology. I think NFC is the right proper term, but we put the stitching on there to where you just scan it with your camera. The joint goes right on it's on your shirt, and it'll take you you know, straight to the, you know, the website we set up for it. So
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty dope. But all of that stuff, yeah, you could, you know, go to the website or go to my IG. It's all in my bio. All the other links for all that stuff. But
Sweet.
yeah, man.
Sweet.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro. Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. And yeah, have a good night.
Thank you, man. God bless you,
All right,
brother.
bro. Yep. You too.